There was another round of WWE cuts this week, but this time the talent was spared, thankfully for them. One source told PW Insider they believed up to 60, or somewhere between 60 and 70 staff members were let go, many of whom had been furloughed months ago. The most shocking of them, though, that we know of, maybe we don't even know all the names, but the most shocking name that came out, who was released this week, was Gerald Brisco, who had been with the company for 36 years. We've had 36 WrestleManias. That's how long Gerald Brisco has worked for Vince McMahon. And I thought Mike Chioda would hold the record this year for the longest tenured employee. I don't know, would Mike Chioda have been considered an employee? Because I would think the referees are independent contractors, just like the talent. I don't know. That's actually a good question. We should hear from a WWE referee. Anybody who's listening can reach out to me and let me know. But I figured that he would have the record for this year, at least, of being the longest tenured person there let go. He was there 33 years. And Brisco had him beat by a few more. At least in this case, unlike Chioda, who was completely caught off guard and did not get a call from any of the McMahons, Vince McMahon actually did make the call directly himself to personally deliver the bad news to Gerald Brisco. Brisco later tweeted, he said, "Okay, I want to get this out the right way. Last night I received a call from Vince McMahon to let me know that after 36 years of dedication to WWE, that I am no longer needed. I am okay with this. I will be around to help talent. I also would like to add that I need a little space. So everyone asking for an interview at this time, I need to step back and take a deep breath. Just remember, I have no anger, just emotions at this time." Now, Brisco was furloughed back in April, as were many others. It appears they're letting go. It looks like they're letting go of the old guard in favor of holding on to the newer producers, the younger producers. There is said to be bitterness from some of the older folks, the released ones. I shouldn't say older folks, from some of the ones that were let go. Because they were led to believe that they would be brought back, or there was a very good chance that they would be brought back. Now, put yourself in that position. If you were furloughed in April, and you were led to believe that, I think originally they were led to believe, we're probably going to bring a lot of you guys back the very end of June, beginning of July. If I remember, I think that was the line that they were given. And then July turned into August. August turned into September. So you've been waiting all this time, right? Let's say you've been waiting now 5 months, figuring you're going to come back, only to then be told you're gone. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of bitterness there. There's going to be a lot of unhappiness there because you were expecting to be brought back. And some people were, but for whatever reason, you weren't. So obviously, those people are going to be upset. Brisco, though, says he's okay with it. He's already teasing some kind of announcement. He's teasing news of some kind that's dropping on Wednesday. So we'll see what that is. The man turned 74 years old this coming Saturday. He had a hell of a run. Jerry and his brother Jack, but I know a lot of you know this story already. Some of you might not. But it's always fun to regale with wrestling history. Jerry and Jack played a very big role in one of the more infamous events in wrestling history, Black Saturday. Some of you probably lived through it. Some of you were probably NWA fans who put the TV on that day and were shocked by what you saw. Shocked and appalled by what you saw on TBS that day. So we go back to 1984. Vince McMahon is looking to expand nationally, right? He's taken over already from his father. He's looking to take this whole thing national. He's not interested in just being a player in the Northeast anymore. He wants to just take over the whole damn thing. And he has the slot on USA Network, but he wants to go beyond that. He wanted a second cable outlet for his shows. Georgia Championship Wrestling was the only other promotion with a national clearance on cable, and that was on the Superstation, TBS. And Ted Turner was always very fond of wrestling because when the Superstation was first created and it was in its infancy, wrestling was one of the things that he put on the channel and did very well. In fact, it probably did better than any of the other programming he had. So Ted Turner always had an affinity for pro wrestling. And Ted Turner used to have a lot of power. He has a lot of money, and he had a lot of power. And so having Ted Turner as an ally of yours was good for pro wrestling. So Georgia Championship Wrestling was on TBS. And Vince McMahon made an offer, as the story goes, to Ted Turner for the slot, and Turner rejected that offer. And so after that, Vince McMahon, of course, he wasn't going to give up so easily. He got wind of some turmoil that was going on behind the scenes in GCW at the time. They had multiple owners. Ole Anderson was one of them. Ole Anderson also was the head booker. And the other owners were not very happy with some of the things that Ole was doing. They weren't getting along very well with Ole. What a surprise. I mean, Ole comes across as such a likable guy in all of his shoot interviews. I can't imagine why people wouldn't get along with Ole Anderson. So Vince McMahon approached the other owners. He didn't approach Ole. Ole had no idea this was going on. Vince approached the other owners, and that included Jack and Jerry, who had a stake in the promotion. And so the Briscoes and Jim Barnett all agreed to sell their stakes to Vince McMahon, which gave Vince McMahon controlling interest, and there was nothing that Ole could do about it. By the time he found out it was a done deal, he was overruled. And obviously he wasn't very happy about it. That then gave Vince McMahon access to that Saturday time slot, that coveted Saturday time slot that he wanted to take over. It gave him a monopoly on over pro wrestling on cable. So imagine the surprise of all of those NWA fans, all those Georgia Championship Wrestling fans, when they tuned into their beloved show on that day, and the first face they saw after the, I forgot, Freddie Miller. I think it was Freddie Miller? I don't know, Freddie Miller, whoever the host was usually the one to throw it to Gordon Soley. And instead of throwing it to Gordon Soley, who did he introduce? He introduced Vince McMahon. And it's still such a weird image to see screenshots or watch the video and you see Vince in that studio, you know, with the backdrop and everything where Soley would usually be standing. And there's Vince McMahon looking completely out of place. And he introduces Vince. And what's worse is that not only were there more WWF matches than featured on the show, because it was matches, I think, from different places, but there were more WWF matches. A lot of those matches were matches that McMahon had already aired on the USA Network shows and in syndication. So it was just a rerun of matches that had already aired on TV. It wasn't even like there was any effort put into having special matches that had never been seen before. He just wanted the slot so he can take matches from the other shows and just rerun them on TBS. And if you were an NWA fan who despised the Vince McMahon version of pro wrestling back then you were very angry when you saw that. And it wasn't very long before Vince sold the slot back to, or he sold it to Jim Crockett for $1 million, and allegedly told Crockett when the sale went through, he allegedly said to Crockett, "I'm going to make you choke on that $1 million." So that was Briscoe's role in that whole fiasco. He even admits that Vince McMahon brought Gorilla Monsoon with him to the studio that first day, I guess to stand backstage as his heavy, in case anyone tried anything. He brought the gorilla along as his bodyguard to make sure things didn't go sideways. Was Monsoon going to pick the guy up in an airplane spin or something? I mean, I know Monsoon had wrestled, but even at that point in '84, I mean, some of the big guys they had down there, I don't know. I mean, I guess Gorilla probably could have held his own, but I don't know what he would have done. But out of it, Briscoe got a job for life with Vince McMahon, or a job for 36 years anyway. But he's been a talent scout for the company for decades. He's helped discover, he's credited with discovering a whole bunch of different people. The most high-profile ones probably are Kurt Angle. I mean, Kurt Angle was known anyway once he won the gold medal, but he helped recruit Kurt Angle. He helped discover and recruit Brock Lesnar, who made a lot of money for the company. Made a lot of money for himself, but has made a lot of money for the company over the years. Shelton Benjamin as well, who has recently found new life on TV with the Hurt Business. He and Benjamin now have something in common. They both held the 24/7 ugly green belt. It was the last time we saw Briscoe on TV last summer. I think he beat Pat Patterson and won the 24/7 title. He was the person responsible for timing the shows in the back for many years. But then he had to scale back on his workload because he had suffered a series of strokes. If you were a fan during the Attitude Era, though, you will remember him as one of the Stooges. He was one of Vince McMahon's Stooges, Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. He said Patterson hated it when people use that word. So Jerry would rib him all the time. He would say, he would go, Pat, we're a bunch of stooges. He would go, no, don't use that word. He goes, but that's what we are. He said we spent our entire careers trying to earn everyone's respect and trying to be remembered as legends and all that. And the thing that we're going to be remembered the most for, he said, is being a couple of comedy stooges on TV for Vince McMahon. And it's true. It's kind of sad, but I mean, it's true in a lot of ways. I mean, Patterson, he'll be remembered for a lot more than just that. But it is kind of true. That's how a lot of fans are going to remember those two guys. But it just goes to show you, to the victors, they get to write history the way that they want to write history. Ole Anderson wasn't the victor. Jim Crockett was not the victor. Ted Turner was not the victor. At least in terms of wrestling. Vince McMahon was. In the end, Vince McMahon was, and that's how, if that's how you're portrayed on his television show, then that's how you're going to be remembered. His show reaches a lot of people. More so back then. But his show reaches a lot of people. I love the Stooges, though. The Stooges were very entertaining. I was never a big fan of the Three Stooges, but the WWE Stooges, I thought they were very entertaining. But I thought Brisco would be a lifer. I guess everybody in that company, though, has an expiration date. Whether your name is Mark Yeaton, the timekeeper, Mike Chioda, the referee, or Gerald Brisco, it doesn't matter. Everyone's got an expiration date. Brisco was not the only legend to be let go this past week. Mike Rotunda, IRS, was let go. He had been working behind the scenes for the company since 2006. They furloughed him on tax day this year. They furloughed IRS on tax day, as if that wasn't insulting enough. And in the end, they opted not to bring him back. Sarah Stock, she was released as well. She had also been furloughed in April. She initially signed 5 years ago to come to the company as a coach at the PC. They ended up transitioning her to a producer role backstage on the main roster. She had wrestled for years as Dark Angel, Sarita in TNA, right? She wrestled as tag team partners with Zelina Vega back in Zelina's days as Rosita. But she never wrestled for WWE. They strictly brought her in to work off camera. Those are the only name people that we know of at this point. There may have been others that have a name that were cut as well. So more names may come out, but the live events division, and this is probably a big part of why people like Rotunda were probably let go. The live events division is just said to be completely in shambles at this point. It got hit very hard. In that division alone, there were at least a dozen or more people that were cut because they're not running live events. WWE, for the first time in its history, modern history, has not run live events, live non-televised events with people in the crowds, which for so long was the bread and butter of their business. I mean, it's what they do. It's like the traveling circus, right? They go everywhere. They travel the country, they travel the world, and they have not been able to do that since March. And there's no sign that they're going to be able to do it anytime soon. Probably not until next year. So with no live events, you're going to have, unfortunately, a situation like this where the people who work specifically in that division are no longer needed. Maybe you can reassign them to other parts of the company, but in a lot of cases, they're just going to, they're going to say, well, thanks, but see you later. And they're going to kick you out. I don't think their live event business is ever going to go back to the way it was. It's never going to be the same. After this, it's never going to be the same again. They had already started scaling back a little bit on the number of house shows they were doing. I don't think they will ever fully go away, at least not in the big markets like New York and Chicago, LA. I mean, they're believe me, they have their annual post-Christmas show at Madison Square Garden. That may not happen this year, but events like that will come back at some point. They're never going to completely stop doing those types of shows. But the WWE live event business, the live event model as it existed previously, even at the very beginning of this year, I truly believe is over and dead, and it's not coming back. I don't think it will ever be the same again, and I don't think they need to run as many events as they were running. But I could see where if they're not running any live events, you can see why the talent would be upset about that, because whatever money they would get or bonuses or whatever from the live event has completely dried up, which could explain why some of them have taken to services like Twitch and Cameo. So that's kind of the update on that situation this week. We'll see if more names come out in the days ahead as far as people who are no longer with the company.